A man reaches into his morning post, expecting bills and letters. Instead, his fingers close around a small cardboard box, damp and strangely heavy. He lifts the lid. Inside sits half of a human kidney and a note that boasts the sender fried the other half and ate it. This was London in 1888. The man who mailed that box killed at least 5 women and was never ever caught. As the 19th century drew to a close, London stood as the largest city on earth, a thundering hub of trade, finance, and restless humanity. But in the autumn of 1888, its East End birthed the horror that would circle the globe. One by one, the district's poorest women were hunted by a killer the world would name Jack the Ripper. There were manhunts and narrow escapes, yet he slipped every net, and then the murders simply stopped. It begins in Whitechapel, a labyrinth of dim courts and overflowing slums where London's poor took shelter and police tramped the streets around the clock. One of those passages, George Yard, would give up a terrible secret on the 7th of August. A tenant named John Reeves was heading to work when he reached the first-floor landing and stopped cold. A woman lay on her back in a spreading pool of blood. Constable Thomas Barrett came first, then Dr. Timothy Killeen, who read the wounds like a grim ledger. 39 stab wounds clustered across her chest and abdomen. Killeen judged she had been dead about 3 hours, placing the kill near 2:30 in the morning, and here was the first riddle. She had died where she fell, yet no one in that crowded building heard a scream. Only Amy Hewitt recalled a lone cry of murder, but that came earlier, on the evening of the 6th, and floated in from outside. Round here, she shrugged. Cries of murder were almost nightly. The victim was Martha Tabram, 39, a mother of 2 long parted from her husband. Her last address was 19 George Street, a lodging house barely 300 meters away, and she survived by selling herself. On her final night, her friend Mary Ann Connolly said they had been drinking with 2 soldiers. Near midnight, the group split, Connolly toward Angel Alley, Tabram into George Yard, and that was the last anyone saw her alive. 2 hours before the body turned up, Barrett had spoken to a soldier loitering nearby, who claimed he was waiting for a mate gone off with a girl. It should have been a lead. But every accused soldier had an alibi. One home with his wife, one on base, one clear across the city. Inspector Edmund Reed let the thread drop, his witnesses having already picked the wrong men. Even if a soldier had done it, no one could name a motive. The sheer cruelty made no sense, and barely a week later, it would only get worse. On the morning of the 31st of August, a carman named Robert Paul turned into Buck's Row and saw a stranger standing over something in the road. The stranger, Charles Cross, beckoned him over. A woman lay on the pavement, her hands already cold. Paul thought he caught the faintest breath, yet both men, late for work, hurried on to find a policeman. Rounding the corner, Constable John Neal lifted his lantern and found her. The throat cut deep, blood still rising, warmth not yet gone from her. Dr. Reese Llewellyn reached the spot after 4 and judged that life had left her only within the past 30 minutes or so. So Cross and Paul had found her mere minutes after the blade. Minutes earlier still, Neal, Sergeant Henry Kirby, and Constable Thane had all passed close by, and none had seen or heard a thing. The mortuary held the real shock. Beyond 2 cuts to the throat, she had been disemboweled, her belly opened by long incisions, and though no organ was taken, Llewellyn sensed a rough anatomical hand. She was Ann Nichols, just turned 43 5 days before, mother of at least 6, last living at 56 Flower and Dean Street. Refused a bed on Thrall Street because she lacked a few pennies. She wandered down Osborne Street, crossed paths with her friend Ellen Holland, then reeled off drunk along Whitechapel Road. Before another hour had passed, her body was discovered. The killer left nothing behind, and Inspector Joseph Helson confessed that not an atom of evidence tied any soul to the crime. Yet the echoes of Martha Tabram were deafening. Two women of like age, the same trade, the same streets, torn apart for no reason. One by stabs, one by slashes, but surely one deranged hand. On the 8th of September, that hand returned. Before dawn, John Richardson perched on the back steps of 29 Hanbury Street, trimmed a scrap of leather from his boot with a knife, and noticed nothing wrong. An hour on, Lieutenant John Davis pushed at the yard door and found a woman sprawled on her back just below the steps, soaked in blood. Inspector Joseph Chandler summoned help. At 6:30, Dr. George Phillips found her terribly mutilated, her throat cut deep, her abdomen laid open, her intestines lifted out and placed beside her shoulder. Near her feet lay a small piece of cloth and two combs, arranged, Phillips believed, on purpose. No mere slaughterman could have done this, the inquest heard, for there were no wasted cuts, only the work of someone at ease in a post-mortem room. Two brass rings had been wrenched from her left hand and were gone, and part of her abdomen, including the womb, was missing. She was Annie Chapman, roughly 47, mother of at least 7, though only 2 outlived her, last at 35 Dorset Street. Refused a bed, she vanished into an alley, and for hours no one knows where she went. Then at 5:30, Elizabeth Long saw a man and Chapman talking outside number 29, though the man kept his back turned. Long caught only a fragment. "Will you?" he asked. "Yes," she answered, but the clocks refused to agree. Phillips put death near 4:30. Long saw her alive an hour later, and Richardson swore no body lay there at 4:45. Next door, around 5:20, Albert Kadosh heard a faint no, then something thud against the fence. Phillips later admitted the cold and heavy blood loss may have fooled him, nudging death toward 5:30. By then, gray daylight lit the yard and windows stood open, yet the killer worked unseen, pausing even to lay out the dead woman's things. As the bodies mounted, the public turned from frightened to furious, and newspapers, even across the Atlantic, jeered that London's police were the stupidest in the world. The mockery missed the impossible odds. A killer with no motive, no weapon left behind, dissolving into a swarming, under-policed slum. A man here, one paper wrote, was a grain of sand. Nowhere felt truer than the 30th of September. That night, a socialist club on Berner Street held its Saturday meeting, breaking up near midnight while a handful stayed to drink. Just after 12:30, Joseph Lave stepped into Dutfield's yard for air, and soon Morris Eagle came in the same way. Neither noticed anything at all. 20 minutes later, a pony and cart clattered in. As the steward Louis Diemschutz drove through the gate, his pony shied sharply to the left. He struck a match. A woman lay against the wall. Not knowing if she was drunk or dead, he bolted inside first to check on his wife. When the crowd finally gathered, the truth was plain. Her throat had been fearfully cut, and a stream of blood was running down the yard. She was Elizabeth Stride, 44, a Swede of 2 decades in London, last at 32 Flower and Dean Street. Unlike the others, she bore only a throat wound, nothing else to bind her to the killer, and yet, less than a kilometer west, and about 45 minutes on, a second body was waiting. Constable Edward Watkins walked Mitre Square every 13 minutes. One pass, empty, the next, a nightmare. In his own blunt words, I turned to the right and saw the body of a woman on her back, her throat cut, her bowels protruding, lying in a pool of blood. Dr. George Sequeira and Dr. Frederick Brown found her face, throat, and abdomen savaged, her intestines drawn out and laid over her right shoulder, and the lobe of her right ear had been sliced cleanly through, on an angle. She was Catherine Eddowes, mother of at least 5, estranged from her family after fleeing an abusive husband, last at 55 Flower and Dean Street. Hours before, drink had felled her on Aldgate High Street, and police held her in a cell until 1 in the morning. Freed into the dark, she was seen near Mitre Square with a sailor-like man, a reddish handkerchief at his neck, by the witness Joseph Lyende. Just 10 minutes separated that sighting from Watkins finding her butchered. 10 minutes in a square ringed by watchers. A policeman and his family slept in the square's only home, a window right above the spot. A watchman, once a policeman himself, cleaned a warehouse within earshot. Constable James Harvey glanced in at 20 to 2. All heard and saw nothing. Had the night simply swallowed the scene in shadow? Might the killer have been crushed against the darkness, mere feet from where they stood? Or had someone merely misjudged the hour? He left one trace. Blocks to the northeast, near a doorway, lay a bloodied scrap of Eddowes' apron, torn off and dropped as he fled. Above it, scrawled in chalk, ran a line insisting that the Jews were the people who would never escape blame for anything. No one can say whose hand wrote it, or with what intent. It might have been a murderer's jeer, an attempt to pin guilt on or lift it from the Jewish community, or something entirely unconnected to the killing. Stride's last hours drew many eyes. A respectable man near 11, a clerkish figure at 1:45, and by Constable William Smith, a man clutching a parcel wrapped in newspaper. Yet the account that lingered came from Israel Schwartz. Near 1:45, he watched a man fling a woman down beside the yard. 3 cries left her, though each was faint. As Schwartz crossed the street, he spotted a second man lighting a pipe. The attacker turned and shouted a single word at him, Lipsky. That name had turned toxic after a Jewish man, Israel Lipsky, was hanged for murder in 1887, curdling into a slur. Inspector Frederick Aberline read it as an insult flung at Schwartz, who looked strongly Jewish, not proof of an accomplice. Schwartz may have come the closest of anyone to the moment of a kill. From Eddowes, meanwhile, the killer had taken the womb and the left kidney. Brown saw a butcher's skill. Sequeira saw none at all. Then the killer, or someone wearing his mask, began to write. 3 days before the double murder, the Central News Agency received a letter claiming the crimes and promising the next job. In the aftermath came a blood-smeared postcard gloating over the double event. Hoping a reader knew the hand, police printed both. No one ever did. The infamous Dear Boss letter swore to clip a victim's ears off and mail them. No such parcel arrived, yet Eddowes' ear had been sliced through, a broken promise or pure coincidence. Modern analysis says one hand penned the letters, hoax or not, but that hand bore no resemblance to the writing scrawled on the Whitechapel wall. On the 16th of October, George Lusk, chairman of the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee, opened a parcel and found half of a human kidney. Doctors confirmed it was human, but could never prove it was hers. The enclosed note insisted it belonged to the victim, and that he had fried and eaten the other half. Many senior officers smelled a reporter's ink, calling it a smart piece of journalistic work, the stained forefinger of the press. And October passed without a single Ripper killing. Perhaps people dared to hope it was over. It was not. On the morning of the 9th of November, landlord John McCarthy sent his man Thomas Boyer to collect overdue rent from room 13 at Miller's Court. Getting no answer, Boyer reached through a broken pane, drew the curtain aside, and recoiled. A woman's savage body lay on the bed. The door was locked and had to be split with a pickaxe. What waited inside was the stuff of nightmares. A body, in the doctor's words, cut all to pieces, hacked beyond recognition. She had been disfigured past knowing, her organs strewn about the room. In the fireplace lay burned clothing. Had he destroyed evidence or only lit himself a lamp to work by? She was Mary Jane Kelly, in her mid-20s, the youngest victim by far, and almost everything about her is a fog. Likely Welsh or Irish, she probably used a false name, for no record of her has ever matched. Until days before, she had lived with Joseph Barnett, a fish porter who lost his work and moved out on the 30th of October, unable to stomach her return to the streets. He visited that last evening on friendly terms. Near midnight, her neighbor Mary Ann Cox saw Kelly, very drunk, going in with a man, and soon after heard her singing. By 2, she was out again, begging a few coins from George Hutchinson, who was broke. Then a well-dressed man approached her, and something about him made Hutchinson watch. He studied the stranger, gloves in one hand, a small parcel in the other, a red handkerchief passed to Kelly. "Come along," she said. "You'll be comfortable." Hutchinson waited until 3. Neither reappeared. Around 4, 2 neighbors heard a woman cry, "Murder." Others heard nothing. The doctors disagreed on the hour, and the true time of Kelly's death still slips through our fingers. Kelly is counted the last of the canonical 5, alongside Nichols, Chapman, Stride, and Eddowes, the victims most likely felled by one hand. Martha Tabram may belong there too. Scholars split. So does the true tally of the dead. And if Kelly really was the last, why stop? Fear, prison, illness, suicide, escape abroad, or a deliberate change of method. The possibilities are endless, and so are the suspects. It began with rumor of a man called Leather Apron, until John Pizer was named and swiftly cleared. Starved of proof and hammered by the public, police chased every faint lead. So many theories, Aberline sighed. We were lost in them. Dr. Thomas Bond sketched a strong, middle-aged man, plainly dressed, unremarkable, with, he insisted, no anatomical skill against nearly every colleague. Witnesses added a stout figure, late 20s to mid-30s, dark clothes, a hat, a mustache. FBI profiler John Douglas argued the killer was a local and probably questioned by police, which means he might be someone we have already met. A witness perhaps, or a face beside a victim. John Richardson, who trimmed his boot on those bloody steps, was suspected, but police found not a shred against him, and his mother lived there. George Hutchinson, who shadowed Kelly's gentleman, was never even properly identified, yet Aberline believed him. Which brings us to the man who found Mary Ann Nichols. That morning, Charles Cross left home, turned into Buck's Row, came upon her body, and was joined moments later by Robert Paul. For over a century, he was the innocent passer-by. Lately, that has been challenged. What if Paul's footsteps interrupted Cross mid-murder? Nichols' lighter wounds would fit, and Cross, it turns out, testified under a false name. The address he gave, 22 Doven Street, belonged to a carman named Charles Lechmere, who sometimes borrowed his stepfather's surname, Cross. His daily walk to work matches the times and places of the murders with unsettling precision. Yet Stride and Eddowes died on a Sunday, his one day off. Why would a man timing kills to his commute choose his day of rest? Perhaps because his mother lived just south of Burner Street, drawing him back on late-night visits. If he really hauled meat for Pickford's, blood would have been his daily company. Lechmere lived out his years in East London and died in 1920 at 71, with no proof he was suspected and none that he wasn't. Joseph Barnett drew far more heat. Kelly's former partner had lost his job, then watched her go back to the very streets he despised. One theory paints him as a man unhinged by guilt, killing prostitute after prostitute to scare Kelly off the game, then destroying her when she cast him aside. Police grilled him for 4 hours, puzzling over the locked door and the missing key, then let him go. He died in 1926 at 68. That key had been lost for a while, and Kelly simply reached through the broken pane to open her door, a trick the killer could easily have copied on his way out. Other detectives hunted a madman, and one name towers over the rest: Aaron Kosminski. Assistant Commissioner Robert Anderson swore there was no doubt whatever: a low-class Polish Jew safely caged in an asylum. According to Anderson, the only witness who had genuinely got a clear look at the man refused to testify against a fellow Jew. A name for that suspect surfaced afterwards through Chief Inspector Donald Swanson, who noted in his own writings that the surname belonged to a man called Kosminski. A real Aaron Kosminski was committed in 1891, a Jewish barber from Poland living in Whitechapel, tormented by voices who once threatened his sister with a knife. But the details clash. Officers placed the suspect in an asylum in 1889, or dead soon after, yet Aaron lived nearly 3 more decades and died in 1919 at 53. Anderson alone seemed sure. McNaughton backed another man. Inspector Reed scoffed that no shadow of proof pointed at any Jew or anyone at all. Then, recently, a blood-stained shawl, said to be lifted from the Eddowes scene by Sergeant Amos Simpson, was DNA tested and trumpeted as the final answer. The headlines cried case closed. The science begs to differ. The shawl's history is a shambles, and mitochondrial DNA, shared by thousands, can rule a suspect out, but never in. One suspect, though, reads like fiction: Francis Tumblety. An American quack born in Ireland around 1833, he peddled cures as the Indian herb doctor while running from the law across 2 continents. Theft, assault, the manslaughter of a patient, even a brush with a Lincoln assassination trailed him, and he was said to loathe women. He supposedly kept a cabinet of jars, wombs from every class of woman, and the Ripper had cut the womb from 2 of his victims. It sounds damning. He was in London that autumn and arrested on the 7th of November, by his own telling, on suspicion of being Jack the Ripper. Charged instead with gross indecency, he jumped bail, sailed to America under a false name, and never came back. His crimes were not extraditable. But he seems too perfect. The lurid womb story traces to a single 1888 interview with Charles Dunham, a proven liar, forger, and perjurer, and Tumblety was an enormous, flamboyant man, older and taller than the quiet figure witnesses described, hard to imagine gliding unseen through Whitechapel. Even the brass rings stolen from Annie Chapman found a faint echo, cheap imitation rings among his estate when he died in 1903, suggestive, and impossible to prove. Chief Inspector Littlechild called him a very likely suspect, but nearly all of it rests on rumor, spun by a man who lied for a living. To hunt the Ripper is to cross a minefield of hearsay and contradiction. Hundreds of names have been floated, from famous authors and artists to police chiefs and royalty. Yet the grand conspiracies crumble beside something far simpler. An unremarkable Carmen, walking to work in the dark. Every candidate offers only shadow and circumstance. Honestly, there is little reason to believe the Ripper has ever truly been named, and maybe that is no surprise. London was the largest city on Earth, its port the busiest, home to millions and to countless undocumented drifters. One lowly sailor, butcher, medic, soldier, or porter could vanish into those slums forever, like a single grain of sand.